4, 3.
Learning about the Makervillage right after this.
That's low. That's low.
Look, he's blushing.
Seriously. Okay.
Welcome to Community Watch. Greg,
Doug,
how you doing?
I'm excited, man.
Yeah?
You know I like technology.
I know. Where did that come from?
I don't know. I just think it's fascinating how people can just create stuff just from their mind, just create things, and it's just awesome, and the things that can be done. And I don't know. I just stay on TED. I stay on the internet. I'm always watching all this new stuff. I'm just fascinated. Did you know they are growing organs right now with technology? They are growing organs.
That's good because I just lost one recently, so I could use another.
But that's why I love it. It's just like it's no limits with technology of what no man can do.
Well, recently we did a show with Tricia Steele and talked about Makerspace in downtown Rome.
Mm-hmm.
And we finished that whole show and got to, I think, a fraction of what we had intended to talk about. So we decided we had to do another. So that's what this is.
Well, actually, it worked out fine because if we had talked about the village then, we wouldn't even learn about the space really. So we've got 2 shows out of it.
And I'm kind of thinking it might lead to a third one. But
Well,
we'll
I'm
see.
hoping so because I know they're doing a lot of great stuff
Yeah.
at the space, and I've looked at the stuff on the village online. So I'm thinking this is one of those shows periodically because technology is forever changing. So I'm sure we can.
Yeah, I'm still stuck with Atari.
I know.
Yeah, okay.
With the list on how to turn everything
Yes,
on.
I know. So, we will be back. It'll be a fascinating show. We've got Tricia Steele and Greg Richardson with us. They'll be joining us shortly. Stay with us. Bring something to write with. We'll be right back.
"7,000 high school students drop out every school day. That's a line of desks more than 4 miles long. We can keep students in school. Visit boostup.org and take the first step."
Welcome back to Community Watch, and we're thrilled to have back with us Tricia Steele. Welcome back. And
Thank you.
Greg Richardson, welcome. And let me get all the titles now. CEO and founder of SAI Digital and Makervillage. How was that? Is that good?
That'll work fine.
And partner in Cividium.
That's it. You got it.
Cividium.
I'm
I
impressed.
like saying that. I don't know what it is, but I like saying it.
So now I'm gonna have to. I know you're gonna come up with some sentence for me. It's a video. I just know him. He's gonna come up with some sentence with some video.
Well,
Okay.
I will. All right, so I'm going to ask something really basic just to get us going, and then Greg will ask all the intelligent questions. I know that Makerspace is a spot downtown where folks can pay kind of a rental fee to have a space to create, and that's essentially what that is. Is that right?
Yeah, just a place for people to hang out and work on projects together and use shared tools. Yep.
All right, so that's one element of what y'all are doing for Rome. So we talked a little bit last time about why here for such a thing. So maybe we ought to start there and then lead to the Makervillage, which is a similar concept really, but a different variety. And so how did this begin and why here? And I'll let y'all both jump in on that because.
Well, I'll let Greg speak to why the makerspace here, since that was really kind of his brainchild in the early days. But I think for me, I was working full time here in Rome, downtown Rome, at Bistro 239. Had a great job. Had bought a house. Was planning to finish up school really non-traditionally, and the owner decided to get out of the business in August of 2008 when the economy was tanking. He went back and got a corporate job as quickly as he could before he knew he couldn't, and I had about 10 days notice that my salary was disappearing. I had a mortgage payment, life's burdens, and was trying to finish up my last year of school, and so I started Sci Digital really to make ends meet. It was just a way to kind of multiply the work I'd been doing for the restaurant. Anyhow, so 5 years later, we're an outfit with 7 folks and health insurance and kind of a grown-up company in some ways, whether I like it or not. But I really want to give back to other folks who are in similar situations or who have a dream or a desire to invent something or to run their own business. And I feel like I want to help lower some of those barriers and help make that path a little smoother for folks who are in that position. So that's where it started for me. That's why Rome for me. Why Rome for you?
So I came here in 2010. I started a consulting business about 10 years ago, and one of the things that we work on is projects where we're deploying fiber optics networks. And there was a project like that in this region called the Appalachian Valley Fiber Network, and they wanted to hire a consultant. We were picked to advise them. So I was coming here 3 days a week, commuting from Forsyth County, and I fell in love with the town, like a lot of people do, and decided to move here in early 2011. The Makerspace came about because in our work we're always in some way connected to economic development. We're looking at how does technology affect growth in the economy and in the community. That's very central to the work that we do. And my company, we decided that we wanted to experiment. We knew about makerspaces, these creative places happening, and we wanted to experiment with that. And what better place to experiment with it? Rome has this great sort of creative culture, and it was a good fit for that. In makerspaces in general, a lot of our thinking was that in any community there are churches, which are places where people go to worship. There's a city hall and a county building, and that's where you go to conduct civic duties and deal with civic issues. There are parks where you go to have recreation and things like that. But there's not really a place in most communities where you go to innovate, where you go to be creative and to work with other people. So we're really intrigued by that, and that's sort of led to us trying to get the Makerspace started here.
Now, I was, well, it's not a big surprise that I was not familiar with. I was not familiar with the, I don't know if it's big enough to call it a movement, but the Makerspace development around.
It's definitely a movement.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But my understanding is that they're all in major metropolitan areas.
That would have been true, I think, maybe just a couple of years ago. I think we've seen more and more examples. We just had a meeting down in Atlanta this week with the founder of a makerspace in Augusta, which is a larger town, I think, than Rome, but it's still not it's not an urban center. When this really got started around 2007, 2008, there were 3 of these in the U.S., 3 that you could call a makerspace or a hackerspace, they get called sometimes. And those were in New York, D.C., and San Francisco. And out of that grew, I think today, it's really hard to count because some of them don't necessarily publicize beyond the community, but let's just say there are hundreds of these in the U.S., or maybe as many as 1,000. So it's spread real rapidly, and it's really just a continuation of something people have been doing for years. I mean, we all remember the sort of stereotypical nutty professor, inventor in the garage. We know about the founding of Apple. It was started in a garage. And so this idea has been around for a long time. I think what was happening in that time frame and what has happened since is that people have the ability to to connect now in unprecedented ways, right, with new speed. And they have the ability to form associations that even 20 years ago were very difficult. Social media, for example, getting on Facebook and realizing that there are 4 or 5 other people in town who are interested in the things you are is normal. It was very hard to find those people 20 years ago for these things to be created. So I think all those things sort of came together and resulted in this growth over the past few years.
Now, I'm passionate about technology. I just think it's wonderful, and I'm always interested in what's coming out, what's new. But one of the things that I see with technology, being innovative, sometimes it is access to those things you need to kind of bring that dream to light, to make it happen. I mean, for instance, 3D printers are not the cheapest things in the world. They're much cheaper now, but having that access. And so that's one of the things when I look at Makerspace is that it's so great is that, here's an opportunity where you have the ideas, but you don't necessarily have the tools.
Right.
Come in and share in this project of using these tools to really bring that dream to light.
Yeah, and the village is really just an extension of that exact idea, which is with access to resources, inventive people will make a way forward, right? And they might do things differently each time. But the resources that we're offering at the village are below retail priced rent. Through the relationship with Appalachian Valley Fiber Network and Parker FiberNet in general, we were able to get each of those 5 properties hooked up to gigabit per second internet, which is like blazingly fast. It's like,
Do we even have devices?
I don't know what those words mean.
it's so at your house you probably have what's standard
5
like
megabits,
5
10
megabits.
maybe.
So this would be 1,000 megabits. So thinking of the scale in terms of the speed and how much information you can move.
So really we have speed that really most of our devices can't even actually process.
Oh, sure, right,
Right, in some
right.
cases.
This idea of with abundant connection, what could be created, and then any of the tenants or members of the village also have access to the space to use those tools, and then they have access to the resources of each other. So right now we have 5 companies located in the village, and one of the founding companies, along with Digital, was Brand Red Studios, which is a video production outfit launched by Ryan Simmons. You may have met with him before. He's also the director of Riff this last year or two. Brilliant production guy out of Berry College, and they have already grown from just him working with a part-timer to now he has 3 full-time staffers, and he has some folks working for him in Atlanta. But he brings a set of resources to those folks who might want to be a part of the village, the ability to help them tell their story with video, which they might use to launch a crowdfunding campaign if they were inventing a product. So the village is just more of a commercialization set of resources.
All right, I need to ask this question.
Okay.
For the individuals out there who are as slow as me. I think we need to distinguish between the space and the village.
Yeah,
So the space is this one big
just one
single
place.
location with room for a lot of
It's
people.
more like a clubhouse.
A clubhouse.
Right? And you have just
It's
a
the
membership
big
fee to get a
garage for
key.
tinkering around.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now the village is individual spaces.
Yeah, the village is,
businesses.
there are 5 buildings. It's all of the buildings that have been empty for a long time up around the clock tower, up on Neely Hill or Clock Tower Hill. And we can divide them in any way that we want. And so we can make room for up to, 12 or 14 companies, depending on how they're split up. And make them available to folks who want to start businesses or grow businesses.
So let me ask you this then, Tricia. So it sounds like an incubator type situation.
Yeah, a little bit like that.
So what is the primary, I know you said below value, and not below value, but you said the rent is very reasonable, or low
Right.
property value. So what is the main thing that the village offers to a young startup?
Well, I think in a lot of cases the ability to get going extremely quickly. So in one of the properties that is more of a shared office space. So there's no utilities that have to be turned on. With $175 a month paid, you have access to 225 square feet.
For how much?
You have a $175 a month.
I could afford that.
Yeah, you can have a second office if you want to make something. Yeah, a shared conference room and an address, right? And you're in business. So I think that sort of that speed to being able to deploy a company is the most foundational. And then the internet access, I think, is second on top of that. It's blazingly fast. You could do all kinds of real-time video production, big pushes of software and code.
But it also comes with access to the space also.
Sure,
right?
and that
So
sense
you
of
can use-
community. Yeah.
So you could have these concepts, you have this blazing speed, so you're doing your research or you're doing CAD or whatever, and then you could go to space,
And go
hypothetically,
print something.
and print something on the 3D printer.
Right, or create your marketing for your company.
And I think there's also this other thing the village provides, which I think may be equally important. It's a little bit less tangible, and that is the clustering of the kinds of companies there. So Tricia's company, Sci Digital, is sort of anchors the village on the corner. And she's probably the best web development and marketing agency in town, and so there's all these resources there. You have Ryan Simmons and Brand Red, who do video production, at a very high level, very sophisticated. We have a freelance designer there in terms of graphic design, logos, all that kind of thing. A trainer who works with Adobe, and I think over time that'll evolve. We think to include professional services. So when you look at what startups need. Oftentimes they need legal assistance, they may have patent issues, copyright, accounting and bookkeeping, is another. So ultimately when a startup moves in, it's almost like they're joining a family. They can sort of yell down the hall and say, hey, does anybody know anybody in the business of this?
So really, you have all these services kind of next door, so that I can go from concept to...
That's right.
Right, and learn from each other.
They're making gestures.
Okay.
We have to stop for a break. We will be right back with more Makering after this. Stay with us.
If you're looking for a new pet that your family will cherish every day, consider adopting from a shelter. Shelters are the best places to find a new pet. That's where you'll discover healthy, loyal, and loving animals, eager to become a part of your family. A person is the best thing to happen to a shelter pet, so bring home your new buddy today. To find out more, visit theshelterpetproject.org.
Welcome back to Community Watch, and we're having a conversation with Tricia Steele and Greg Richardson about the Makerspace and the Makervillage and the distinctions and connections between them. Now, the Makervillage, is that a concept that is happening elsewhere as also, like the Makerspaces, or is that a new thing here?
Well, I think there's, Greg, you mentioned incubators, so the concept of incubators has been around for a long time. Typically an incubator, though, has this motive of investors who are setting up an environment where they want to make money. There may be some trade of equity with a company who locates there. We're not that, and so that sets us apart a little bit. I think probably what we're more similar to are startup communities, and those exist in a number of cities. The one that I think we've taken probably the most inspiration from is Boulder. Boulder, Colorado has, I think you gave me the stat the other day, the highest number of startups on a per capita basis of anywhere in the country. So they've done this 20-year transformation of really embracing entrepreneurship as a driver for economic growth. And there's a gentleman named Brad Feld who is a bit of an icon in this space, and he's written a book about the Boulder. He calls it the Boulder Thesis, and we've been really inspired by that. So these do exist in other places. I think generally communities look at economic development as going and recruiting an auto manufacturer or recruiting a carpet company. Those things are critically important, right? Recruiting employers is critically important. We simply think that we have another role to play, which is organic. What can we grow from inside the community as opposed to having to go outside and find a company to bring us jobs.
Yeah,
that's
so
a little
we
different.
say that Makervillage is the economic gardening instrument for Northwest Georgia, right? So right now we're really focused on this set of properties and helping to launch companies, but really our work is going to be very broad, right? It might be looking at education and ways that sort of the maker mindset might mean something different for the way people access learning resources, right? Just a complementary option. The thing that I'm really excited about that we're working on, and it's just really, really in the early stages, is working on some capital, access to capital. So we've got some great bank presidents on our board of advisors, and we get to have coffee and talk about how could we leverage some things and make some capital available, maybe at a lower rate in terms of loans, or how could we pull something together to have some sort of equity investment group. So there's a lot of really exciting things. I think the idea of gardening is really appropriate, right? We're working the soil. We're working to grow things up from within the community.
Well, let me ask you this. Ideally, what would so someone moves into Makervillage, they move in, how long would they stay? So they come in and then stay how long till they're able to go off and so what does that look like? What kind of time?
I guess my first experiment with this was just within my own company walls. So I've got 3,000 square feet with SciDigital, which includes this upstairs office that has a separate entrance and a bathroom. And so when we created Venue Dog, the web app, a company was launched. When they were ready to hire staff, they moved in to our Suite C. They were there for, I guess, 6 or 7 months, and then they wanted to have more of a Broad Street presence. They wanted to have multiple people. They're growing their content group. And as you know now, I don't know if you've talked with those folks. If not, you should. They're now in Nashville and Athens and several other cities in Rome. I know in Cartersville and the Ackworth, Kennesaw area. So they're expanding. So that took them about 7 months. I think I want us to be I want our rates to be low enough that if someone had an idea and they said, you know what, I could float 3 months of living and I could focus on this idea, I want them to feel like they could give it a shot at the village. So we're really flexible in terms of terms and links. We're not like a typical landlord. In fact, we don't want to think of it like a landlord relationship. We want to think of it more as like a membership relationship.
So if they're there for two or 3 years, then something's wrong with the model.
Yeah, that probably wouldn't be
So the idea
right.
is really to kind of connect everybody, give you the support you need, get it up and running, and see you off.
Right.
Yeah,
so most of the spaces
that
are
defines success for us.
Yeah.
right. Most of the spaces are. My company grew in the village with, there was no name for that. I had 400 square feet. My address was 108B, parentheses, upstairs. Right? That was like the very first company address.
Bathroom.
Right. I was like a half of a half. And as we grew, I was able to move into the downstairs and double that space so I could add some more staff. And then we kind of outgrew that. It just wasn't right. We needed everyone on the same floor. And so that's when I moved down the street and have 3,000. So, I think my vision would be that other companies follow that same path. They either expand out within the village, and then it's just not right, and they have to go find a bigger space. I think in a bigger way, there may be a role for us to play in helping other owners of bigger properties to make their properties maker friendly. So there might be a role to be played in sort of continually helping to create spaces that are really conducive to the kind of maker or tech-based business.
Well, I think there's some proof
as
in
they
that.
grow.
There's some proof in that too, in the sense that these properties that we leased to create the village were vacant for I think a period of about 2 years. They were vacant when
Several
we leased
of them
them.
are, yeah.
It was really, really hard, and granted, it was a tough commercial real estate market during this recession. But after I guess about 3 months, we're at about 40% occupancy and we're break even on our model, and we think that's pretty powerful. So if there are other developers and other real estate folks out there who have properties in these kinds of areas like downtown, I think Tricia's idea is a great one, that let's make them entrepreneur friendly, let's make them maker ready, and we can leverage the model that we've been working on.
I'm just thinking about it in the way that I do. It makes me think of what many writers have always needed. A colony or a space where they can go for a period of months to work on a special project in the quiet zone that they need.
Right, it has nothing else, no other of life's concerns.
Yeah.
Right.
So this is a more technological version of this, and so you have spaces available now.
Absolutely. We have 3 remaining spaces in kind of our shared hub, where those rates are what I was talking about, right? So they're $175 for a complete startup. For an established business that just wants to move there, they're $225. And then we have several thousand more square feet that we can dice up in a lot of different ways in the other properties.
You know, with those type of rates, I got to be honest with you, that's inspiring. I mean, if you were a person who innovative and always kind of wanted to get out there and try it, at those rates, it's like, this is, if you're going to try it, this is it. Go for it now. Because at 175, even 225, now, I mean, that's something you can manage that. So now you can focus, and then you connect it to these other people, like you're talking about the clustering, that give you ideas just to be able to talk to people in that same kind of venue.
Right.
That you got ideas, and they can say, okay, yeah, I like that, or have you considered
Absolutely.
this? That's invaluable.
Yeah, we, one of the things we've become very aware of is that even people in Northwest Georgia who have projects or side ventures that are really successful, they're not interested in making that their full-time job, right? So many of them are they would rather sling drinks as their full-time job than take the risk of making their hobby or their passion their business. And some of that, I think, is just cultural. I think that there is just a fear of risk. I think some of that's just Southern, but some of it might also be, we're kind of removed from that urban center. We don't see a lot of examples of that happening. So I think my goal is to make it there's already enough that's scary about starting a business or kind of pursuing a passion, and so I want to take away as many of the scary things as I can, so that they can nurture an idea, right?
And there's kind of a relationship here, Greg, I think, between scarcity and abundance, right? Our model is based on abundance, and what I mean by that is, if you take, let's say, someone who's trying to rent property out, they own some property and they're trying to rent it out. The scarcity model is to think about that and say, well, how can I set my rates and market in such a way where I get the most dollars per square foot? That's one approach, right? We look at what we're trying to do, and we look at it in reverse, and we say, well, how low can we drive those rates? Because the gain is going to come from having a very vibrant entrepreneur community here in Rome. They're going to hire people, just like Tricia's company did. Those people are going to create new products. They're going to hire more people. New companies will spring up around them. So we're really trying to pursue this model where we lower the barriers for these companies and then base the gain on growth, not on maximizing the return.
That makes so much sense.
It does. It
Even
really
to me.
does. I mean, I just...
Yay! That's important.
Well, we're coming up on another break. When we come back, we're going to give you some contact information. So if you didn't get your pen and paper before, you better get it now. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Packers. Viking. Packers. Viking. Viking.
Red state, blue state, vegan.
Carnivore.
We come from different places.
Uptown.
Downtown.
Optimist.
We come to different conclusions.
Half empty.
Half full.
But when we live united, we create real, lasting change in the building blocks of life. The education, income, and health of our communities,
Live
our families,
united.
even the person next to us.
Live united.
Real change won't happen without you. So give, advocate, volunteer, live united. Sign up at liveunited.org.
Welcome back to Community Watch. We've been talking with Tricia Steele and Greg Richardson, and if you are interested in applying for one of these spots in the Makervillage or in the Maker Space, here are 2 websites you need to go to: Makervillage.org or 7 Hills Make. That's the number 7 Hills MAKE.org. And you can check out the Maker Space on Broad Street on Thursday evenings. They'll let you in just to check it out, and it's right next to Jefferson's, the entrance. Thanks to our guests. Thanks to you. We'll see you next time on Community Watch.